Ford engineered a racing engine so massive it physically would not fit inside the Mustang. The Boss 49 was their weapon to dethrone Chrysler's Hemi on NASCAR ovals. Instead, it triggered a secret crisis that nearly destroyed Ford from the inside. By the late 1960s, Detroit's horsepower war had reached a fever pitch. Ford, once the leader with its 427 and 428 Cobra jet engines, found itself outgunned. Chrysler's 426 Hemi, introduced in 1964, had become the gold standard. Its hemispherical combustion chambers and massive valves delivered a factory rating of 425 horsepower, but real-world figures and race results suggested even more. On NASCAR's Grand National Circuit, the Hemi powered Plymouths and Dodges to victory after victory, including a decisive win at the 1964 Daytona 500. Ford's own entries, from the Fairlane to the Galaxy, struggled to keep pace, and boardroom reports warned that the company's performance image was eroding. The stakes were not confined to the track. NASCAR wins had a direct impact on showroom sales, as the mantra "win on Sunday, sell on Monday" became gospel among Detroit executives. Each new engine launch was a public challenge to the competition. Car magazines published side-by-side horsepower charts. Ford's 428 Cobra Jet at 335 horsepower, the Hemi at 425, and Chevrolet's 427 Big Block, closing the gap at 425 as well. The performance ceiling moved higher with every season, and the market responded. Buyers demanded the latest, most powerful engines, and the brand that lagged behind risked losing not just races, but also customers. Under growing pressure, Ford's leadership recognized that incremental upgrades were no longer enough. The company needed a radical new engine to reclaim its place at the front of the pack. The Boss 429 would be their answer, but for Ford, the next move would come at a steep cost. Larry Shinoda, known for his work on the original Mustang, and Bunky Knudsen, Ford's performance chief, led the charge for a new engine that could rival Chrysler's Hemi on both the track and the sales floor. Their directive was clear: build a power plant that would not only meet, but exceed the demands of NASCAR's new homologation rules. The result was the Boss 429, a 429 cubic inch V8 with a radical semi-hemispherical head design. Instead of a true hemispherical chamber, Ford's engineers opted for canted valve heads. This layout angled the valves away from each other, creating a shallow, semi-hemispherical chamber that allowed for larger intake and exhaust valves, 2.5 inches for the intake valves and 2.25 inches for the exhaust. The design improved airflow, enabling the engine to breathe at high RPM, a necessity for sustained speed on NASCAR's super speedways. The head's cross-flow architecture provided the volumetric efficiency needed to compete with the Hemi, while fitting, at least in theory, within the Mustang's engine bay. On paper, the Boss 429 promised between 450 and 550 horsepower in race trim, with torque figures approaching 470 pound-feet at 6,500 RPM. The block itself was a reinforced casting paired with a forged steel crankshaft and solid lifters. Ford's goal was to produce a street-legal engine that could survive NASCAR's punishing demands, yet still be sold through dealerships. The urgency behind the project left little room for compromise. Every technical choice, from the aggressive cam profiles to the oversized ports, was made with one goal: win back Ford's dominance on the oval. But the boldness of the design would soon collide with the realities of manufacturing and fitment, setting the stage for the next chapter in the Boss 429's troubled story. Kar Kraft's shop in Brighton, Michigan, became the nerve center for solving the Boss 429's most stubborn engineering dilemma. The engine simply would not fit the Mustang's engine bay. To accommodate the oversized block and canted valve heads, Kar Kraft technicians re-engineered the K-member, reinforcing it and lowering the mounting points to create the space needed for the deep oil pan. The standard oil pan was replaced with a custom low-profile design featuring an offset drain, a detail that allowed the massive engine to clear the cross member and transmission tunnel. Every Boss 429 required hours of hand assembly, on average 13 labor hours per car, just for engine placement, torque checks, and final fitment. Each modification was logged and signed off by Kar Kraft specialists, ensuring that every Mustang left the shop with the structural integrity and performance Ford demanded. The work came at a level of craftsmanship and complexity far beyond the standard assembly line. Inside Ford's finance committee, the numbers told a troubling story. Each Boss 429 Mustang carried an $800 surcharge above standard models, a direct result of the hand-built modifications at Kar Kraft. Executive memos circulated with margin projections. Where a regular Mustang offered a 15% gross margin, the Boss 429 was forecast at just 8%, even under optimistic sales assumptions. Committee members like John Roch pressed for detailed cost analysis, warning that if production dipped below 1,200 units, profits would erode to near break-even. Harold Miller, another finance voice, argued that only a run of 2,000 cars could justify the expense. The debate grew heated as performance advocates pushed for the project's racing value, while finance leaders questioned if the thin margin and high costs could be sustained without jeopardizing Ford's broader financial targets. NASCAR's rulebook left no room for negotiation. To compete, Ford had to build a minimum of 500 street-legal Mustangs equipped with the Boss 429 engine. The language was explicit. Production engines and race engines had to match, and every unit had to be available for public sale. Ford's legal and engineering teams petitioned for minor concessions, such as allowing lightweight brackets on race cars, but NASCAR's technical committee stood firm. The committee's written response, preserved in Ford's archives, confirmed that only cars fully assembled and ready for the road would count toward that total. This ultimatum forced Ford's hand. The company committed to a full production run, knowing that failure to meet the threshold would bar the Boss 429 from the grand national grid and render the massive investment in development and modification worthless. Today, automakers still face the same tension: engineering brilliance versus business risk. The Boss 429's legacy warns that when ambition eclipses discipline, even icons can threaten a company's foundation.